From the Church Manual, the section entitled Testimonials. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Testimony in regard to the healing of the sick is highly important. More than a mere rehearsal of blessings, it scales the pinnacle of praise and illustrates the demonstration of Christ who healeth all thy diseases. This testimony, however, shall not include a description of symptoms or of suffering, though the generic name of the disease may be indicated. For those that share testimonies tonight, please keep your remarks within 4 minutes so everyone will have a chance to offer their contribution. And for those on the teleconference, when you're ready to give your testimony, please press *1. Listen for the acknowledgement message that your hand is raised. That lets us know that you're ready. And when we're ready here, we will call on you. And now I'd like to open the meeting for sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Okay, Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for those beautiful readings tonight. Last Wednesday evening meeting, I heard Joseph give a really beautiful account of the churches in Barcelona. It had reminded me of a church experience that I had recently. In November, I had the privilege and honor to visit the Plainfield Church. My husband and I were driving, and as we were getting closer to the church, the GPS said, "You've arrived at your destination on the left." And as we were looking left, I really wasn't sure what I was going to see. I kind of expected seeing a church with maybe buildings around it or trees or houses. And as we got closer and turned and looked, there it was. It was like jetting out, right out on that corner of Prospect Avenue. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. My husband and I both said, "Wow, isn't that beautiful?" It warmed my heart to see it standing there as a symbol of love and standing out there for the whole world to see, for the world to feel the love and dedication just pouring out of it. I later learned that Plainfield was built as a Christian Science church. My home church was another denomination prior to becoming a Christian Science church, and sadly, it no longer exists. But because Plainfield was always a Christian Science church, to me it was all the more special. As we left that day, we were already anticipating when we could return. I know that through God's guidance that all of you in Plainfield have made this beautiful church an oasis in the desert for all that visit. You certainly did for me and my husband. And I hope that you that are living outside of New Jersey will one day take the opportunity to visit Plainfield. I promise you will be so happy you did. Thank you to all in Plainfield for your hard work, dedication in maintaining that beautiful church. You are dearly loved. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. I have to be quick tonight because my grandchildren are about to come back. I wasn't going to give a testimony, but the Bible studies are just so wonderful, and the readings, everything. And the Bible studies are my particular focus tonight because I was working on the question tonight, and the deeper, more spiritual understanding of the Bible has just been so wonderful. It has brought me joy and comfort and expanded thought and more peace. And I think I'm nicer to be around because of it. I thank you, Plainfield. Thank you.
We're so glad you're around, too. Thank you. Connie from Texas, go ahead.
Thank you. I need to express my gratitude this evening for Plainfield Church and everything I'm learning here, for the help I'm getting from my practitioner in Plainfield, and for all the helpful articles on the website, which I've been using quite extensively lately. I don't think there's a subject that's not covered there. I'm grateful for the Bible studies and the roundtables, and for all the members and everything they do to keep all of this going. I'm grateful for Mary Baker Eddy and Christ Jesus, and I'm grateful to God, who is the source of all this goodness. And thanks for those readings, Fairley and Elsie. Just wonderful. Thank you.
And thank you.
I also want to thank AC and Fairley for the wonderful reading, especially the story about the Good Shepherd in the Bible that Fairley read. I couldn't stop thinking about. I almost cried when I heard that story read tonight, because it reminded me when I was growing up, living with my mom and growing up with these animals. In my case, it was chicken, but I basically know each one of them by name. As Philly read tonight, every single one of them, no matter how old or how young they were at that time, they know me that time. And I have a special bond with every one of them, and I still do to this day. And I can't be grateful enough for that story of Jesus Christ being the Good Shepherd, how God cares for every one of us. He, like she read tonight, God knows every one of us by name. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. God did not create any religion. The Bible says God made man in his image. That was all God made. And he knows every one of us by name. I mean, what a confidence that he gave me tonight to know that. And I'm sure every one of us going to be some confident too, knowing that God knows all of us by name. Nobody's left out of God caring. And it's a wonderful feeling. I'm so grateful that I'm here tonight to be blessed by this reading, and I'm sure everyone did tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsie from Alabama, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to, this is long overdue, I wanted to thank Sharon and Carol for the wonderful calendar they put together. I use it all the time. And I'm so grateful because it has brought such, that's the first thing I look at in the morning, and it sets my thought in the right direction. I have done a couple of watches, personal watches here at home, and I used the citation from January 8th, which I thought was very profound. It was from Mrs. Eddy. Goodness makes its own heaven, sin its own hell, and belief its own suffering. We see this all the time. And I really am grateful for the work that they do to bring this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm grateful for a healing I had recently. The first weekend of January, I woke up with a lot of pressure in my head. And as I went about my day, my left ear became very painful. It was kind of surprising to me because I hadn't had an earache since I was a child, and I had remembered how it bothered me at that time. I was out and about running errands with my son, but I was able to get in touch with a practitioner there by text who said she would pray for me right away. And as soon as I got home, I did call her, and she suggested I study the section in Herbert Eustace's book, among many things that she suggested, but Christian Science's Clear, Correct Teaching about infection. And I got very quiet in my room, and I fully imbibed the ideas in this. And it became clear that mind is the only source of conscious being, my being, and that mind, being infinite, leaves no place where infection could be, present or feared. It had no law behind it, and God is the law of annihilation to any lie. And another idea that hit home with me is to see the meaning of infection as God itself to its idea, infecting its expression, me, with life, purity, and perfection. After about an hour or so of working, really understanding these truths, the pain in my ear just stopped. And I'm just so grateful for this and for the practitioner's immediate help. And thank you so much, Shirley and Elsie, for those readings.
Thank you.
This week I want to thank God for all that He continues to do for me. The work that I do, that I'm blessed to do for this church, is a lot of times it's way too much for me. I sort of, before here, I would never have been able to do this, but because God is watching over me all the time, I'm so grateful for that, because that's the only way it gets done. So I just really wanted to say that. And also, I got to thank my practitioner, because every day she helps keep me straight, so thank you. And also, I'm going to play a testimony from Lauren now, too.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm in California. Yesterday I was at a meeting, a community meeting that had nothing to do with Christian Science, but before the meeting people were schmoozing and gossiping and talking about some kind of something going around. I think they were referring to something similar to what Mrs. Eddy would have called Qatar, and my thought wasn't even there. I was so filled with the truths of the lesson and things of that nature that it was just seemed so foreign to me, and I'm so grateful for the lessons, the teachings of Christian Science, and the readings we have on the Plainfield website that help keep ourselves alert. When I got home, I did read the section on contagion in Mrs. Eddy's works, and I'm just so grateful for our defense and how we can defend ourselves just by having our thought elevated to the point where these things do not touch us. And of course we need to pray for our fellow man and for the world, and that's good too, and I did that. But my point is that due to our connection with the teachings of Christian Science, the materials available on Independent Christian Science Plainfield website, we are able to not only protect ourselves and not even be aware in our consciousness of things, but also to be of benefit to the world. Again, I'm very grateful for the Christian Science Plainfield Church and for all of the wonderful things that are going on there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. And thank you to both of you.
Thank you for the wonderful read. For both Farley and Elsie, they are so inspiring and thought-provoking. I particularly I also like what Elsie said, quoted, "The time for thinkers have come." And it has it's been a big change in me, because I always thought that I had to do all the reasoning. And the biggest lesson I got was that pray and listen, and that's thinking too, because you think about what you hear from God. And when I started listening more after praying and then thinking, I found I was correct more than wrong. I started to understand. I also wanted to thank very much A practitioner recently mentioned the importance of staying on top of things, on top of your affairs and your business and responsibilities. And I kind of blushed because I realized there was so many half-done things that I had. And it's not a good thing, and it sets me up for probably other things. I realized it made it, the next thing, so much harder to do. So I got to work on finishing things. And I've been so much more peaceful straightening around the house and my office, and I feel more like I'm living up to what I've been reading more than just reading. Because good deeds are important, not just good words. So I really appreciate that, and it made me feel more honest. I read in the lesson Jeremiah 17:7. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. And if you're hoping the Lord, He gives you something to do and you don't finish it, it's not really trustworthy, and I'm sure God's not happy about it. So I've just finished, the day and the last couple of days, it felt so much better by just following through and being, principled. I thank God for Mary Baker Eddy and the help we got here.
Thank you. Okay, Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank Plainfield for all the wonderful teaching that goes on, that in the last 2 years that I've been able to take advantage of and begin to understand what I always wanted to understand before, through the round tables and the Bible studies, the wonderful lessons, sermons, just a great deal of thanks. And I found myself feeling so sorry for the Pharisees who didn't understand when they had Jesus there. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. The Moores from Georgia, go ahead.
Thanks. This is Lenny. Well, I can also echo what Fairley said. I am so grateful for everything that I have been and continue to learn in this church. Both through all of our meetings and the different things that the church offers, like the round tables, but also through working, very closely with the practitioners in this church. I was thinking today that, kind of looking back, about the things how I used to pray, and I realized, like the old Lenny, or pre-Plainfield Lenny, I'd pray when there was like a physical need or a personal problem, or maybe about something at work or what kind of employment. But I didn't bring God into my life, not really. God was just for handling specific problems. But I certainly had been taught to pray about things like, whether or not it made sense or was right to take a vacation, or, about how I exercised, or, maybe about a hobby or something that I might be doing, as a, quote-unquote fun thing. It's like, those things were somehow separate from everything else, and certainly not something that you would pray or take to God. And, it's been one of the most interesting things that I have learned in how this church has awakened me to. You don't compartmentalize God. It's not just about, giving your life to God in certain instances and sending your prayer or thought to God in some, but then you've got these others over here that's completely separate. That doesn't really have anything to do. A good illustration of this was a few months ago. I had reached out to God about whether or not I should lease a horse. It's a hobby of mine, and it seemed like there was a very good deal that came up. And I was going to go through with it. It seemed like everything was right, but I suddenly just got a sense that maybe it wasn't right. And I prayed very diligently about it and reached out to God and asked Him to send me a sign, and I got it. And then it came very clearly not to do it. Well, fast forward 3 months, and looking back, a number of things had come up that would have made a lease difficult, would have made keeping up with it expensive. And this past month, that horse I was going to lease has been lame. And I had to smile because I was like, it was so wonderful to see all of the reasons kind of just unfolding for why that wasn't the right thing for me to do at the right time. And I'm so grateful that I'm learning to reach out to God and to bring him into all of my life. It's not just about physical healing or, calling on God when you're feeling sick or something. And I also realized, too, I don't know where I was reading this recently, but in the Bible where it talks about sometimes you ask amiss that you may consume it on your lust. And I thought this was very applicable as well because, sometimes you think, oh, well, this is something wonderful and it's a great hobby or I want to do this. And you think, well, sure, God wants to get behind that. And you don't even really think about asking him if you should or when you should or what's the right thing or the right time. So I just think it's been a really neat experience to see how this has unfolded for me, and I'm so grateful to be learning in this church how to reach out to God, and for also how the way this church has opened up my ability to feel like I'm really starting to feel and hear God's direction in my life. It's very exciting, and I'm very grateful for that. And thank you for the readings tonight, and thanks everyone for your testimonies.
Thank you. Suzanne from Vermont, go ahead.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be able to attend the church tonight with beautiful readings and testimonies. I had a really neat thing happen this morning. One thing this church has taught me is that God can take care of every detail in your life. I had to renew my driver's license, and I had to go in person, and they also gave me a list of things I needed to bring in for the new procedures, and one of them was my Social Security card, because I didn't have the other things on the list. And I just had no idea where my Social Security card was. So I got a little more concerned because the deadline is approaching, and I just knew that God would show me where it was, because I certainly had no idea, really no idea. And I was envisioning my original cards from decades ago. So this morning I woke up and I thanked God for life and this beautiful day. And for some reason, my need of finding that Social Security card came to mind, and I was led to get up and look in one place, and it wasn't there. And then the idea came, well, try downstairs in the drawer in my husband's office. So I marched downstairs, and there was a pile of papers, and within seconds I found it. And what was astounding was that I hadn't even remembered that I had a new Social Security card from 5 years ago after I got married. I had no recollection of that envelope being there. But God led me right to it within 90 seconds of getting up. And I just was voicing, thank you, Lord, for really, just making this whole process go smooth. And, taking a mini road trip and getting my license, it was the easiest thing in the world. There was no line. It took 5 minutes. I couldn't believe how easy it was. But God certainly was there in my moment of need, and he does take care of every little detail in your life. And it's only Plainfield Church that taught me that being a Christian Scientist is a moment by moment depending on God and walking with God. I thank this church for all that I'm learning, for the practitioner support, and the beautiful services. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for something I read in a lesson this week
is from page 476 of Science and Health, the citation, "Learn this, O man, O mortal, and earnestly seek the spiritual status of man." This caught my attention. It reminded me of when I first started to see clearly how significant the understanding of the spiritual status of man is in practicing Christian Science. It meant that I could do all the reading and the studying, but without the application of the truth, I was not getting too far with my spiritual growth. I had to practice what I was learning. It was important that I consistently know that I am spiritual. It had to be the way I thought of myself, even if I could not fully understand it or feel it. I started to ponder what man is, as stated in the glossary, that man is the compound idea of infinite spirit, the spiritual image and likeness of God, the full representation of mind. This took some time, but because of the emphasis on consistency in applying the truth as was taught in this church, gradually what I would call a new view of who I am started to take place. This has helped me to see that the physical as well as the other claims that come up have no place in my spiritual status. In fact, they are impossible in them. I still go back to these definitions because of the power in those truths. I have been helped tremendously with many healings through this discipline, and I am grateful for this understanding and all other understandings that I have gained that have truly changed my life. Thanks for the beautiful readings.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to add my thanks tonight. I had an experience recently that I'd like to share. We've been studying at our roundtable discussions on Sunday mornings from Mrs. Eddy's article entitled Obedience from Miscellaneous Writings. And this last Sunday we talked about this sentence: honesty in every condition, under every circumstance, is the indispensable rule of obedience. I was talking to someone earlier this week to try to get a matter resolved, and it was obvious that this other person didn't really want to have to talk about it, wanted to change the subject. That's the way it is when you're talking about something you'd rather not talk about. You get dishonest and change the subject to something else. And there was a time when I would have not pressed the issue, thinking like, oh, I don't want to make this person talk about something I don't want to. But that would have been dishonest on my part, besides not resolving the issue. And then the other reaction that many times I've done is to get aggravated with the other person and start forcing the issue. And that's not honest too, because I'm not seeing man in God's image and likeness when I act that way. So what came to me was, obviously this person was uncomfortable with it, but the thing that was going to help this person get over it is love. And God gave me something to say to this person, to let them turn around and address this subject directly, which this person did, and we resolved it right then and there. I'm grateful for the learning. I'm grateful for that God gave me some words to speak that helped resolve this matter. And for Mary Baker Eddy's inspired writings that we have the privilege of having.
I'll read tonight from the church website bulletin board. The first from Wisconsin. Peter, thank you for the beautiful hymns on Sunday. The sound of the bells on the third stanza was breathtaking. Pennsylvania, many thanks to Tom and all the participants for the beginning of the study of the book of Esther. The characters apply to our lives today, not bowing down to hatred and evil, humility, quietly doing our work for God, listening to God's timing, cooperation, and more. And also Pennsylvania, thank you, Walt, for your reading of fruitage from Signs and Health at the service today. It was beautiful. Also, thank you, Peter and Faith, for the lovely song today. I always look forward to hearing the song planned for the week. It's like a gift. In Costa Rica, thanks also to the organ player. I tune in and start to hear him play the hymns prelude, and I feel great joy. Yes. In New York, it was such a great round table and Sunday service. Thank you to the readers. I felt uplifted and happy listening online. I also enjoyed the beautiful music. This was a truly healing service, and I am so very grateful. In Illinois, thanks to Tom for last week's Bible study on Esther. You did a great job putting all that together. It's really meaningful to do a deeper dive into these Bible stories, how relevant they are to our lives today. And then a couple emails. The first from Australia. I love what you are doing at Plainfield, and I love your website. Thanks to all of you. And then from Oregon. I've been listening to your Wednesday meetings, some roundtables, and have been using the very wonderful website, which I find deeply inspirational. I am a member of a Christian Science church in Oregon, an active member for many years. However, it pains me to admit that I have become quite challenged by the Christian Science culture, which often appears to be quite diluted from what I understand Christian Science to be. One practitioner friend and I have tried for 20 years to institute inspirational meetings like your roundtables and to work for lectures that would be reflections of deeply understood spirituality. This has been to no avail. In fact, lectures have ceased entirely, and I can't say I am really sorry, as the ones we have were mostly very painful to witness. I'm sure you have heard all this before, and I want to always purify my thought regarding this church and the members, and never have a sense of animosity. I am honestly drawn to Plainfield and the atmosphere of love and strength that I sense there. I wish to thank you all of you, your dedicated members, for the website and their loving offering to the world, with much gratitude. In the Bible, in Isaiah, there is this verse, "This people I have formed for myself, they shall show forth my praise." We certainly heard that tonight. Beautiful readings and wonderful testimonies, people showing forth their praise and gratitude to God. And to know, too, that God formed us for himself. This was a tremendous lesson that I've learned, and I'm sure I'm still learning here, that we exist for God. It's not the other way around. God doesn't exist for us to bail us out of our problems. We exist for God. And it was certainly beautifully expressed in many of the testimonies tonight. To know this, to know that you exist for God, is to have found what we call your divine destiny. We each have a divine destiny. We've each been put on this earth for a reason given to us by God. And when we find that divine destiny, our lives change. We begin not to just live for our own personal selves, but we find we do have this greater purpose to serve him, to obey him, to give our lives to him. And when we do this, we go from glory to glory. It's not that we don't have problems, but we do have problems, but we meet them with science, and we grow, and we change, and we become more enlightened and happier and healthier and holier in every way. The opposite of this is the human destiny. In the human destiny, you go from problem to problem. There's no God in it. You really don't know why you're here or what you're doing. When you have a problem, you kind of struggle through it and feel all the worse. afterwards, sometimes never getting that healing you're looking for. I know I was once there, and I certainly don't ever want to go back to that. That is what we call the Adam dream, and it's something we can awaken from to find our true divine destiny. In Romans, it says, all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that were called according to his purpose. When we know that, when we know we've been called according to his purpose, we find our divine destiny. It doesn't matter what challenges we have. God will turn it to gold. We'll turn it to gold. There'll be healing and joy and every good thing, and we will go forward rejoicing. I'm so grateful for this, so grateful for dear Mrs. Eddy giving us this science, and thank you again for the inspired readings and testimonies tonight.
Thank you.